in-person ticket service teams, which include season tickets, sponsorships, as well as premium seating. The Predators have been a 90% plus renewal rate over the past 5 seasons, and they have also experienced a 108% renewal rate from last season going into this season. They are currently on a 109-game sellout streak. Impressive. Prior to joining the Predators, Mulford spent 5 seasons as the group sales manager with the Florida Marlins. During his 5 seasons there, the Marlins enjoyed a 136% increase in group ticket revenues. His department created some very successful group initiatives, but none larger, and I know where we are, I know you might not be a fan of this, but none larger than the University of Miami Night, which saw close to 20,000 tickets sold each year to a single game. This is the largest group in Marlins history and one of the largest in professional sports. Before joining the Marlins, Mulford was a ticket sales representative for the Florida Panthers, the ECHL's Pensacola Ice Pilots, and the AF2's Pensacola Barracudas. The Albany, Georgia native's first taste of professional sports came as the Director of Media Relations for the Carolina Mudcats, which are a AA baseball team in the Southern League. He's a graduate of Florida Atlantic University and has a wife and 2 children, Marcella, who's 13, and Noah, who's 11. So we thank him for taking time out of his schedule in Nashville and time away from his family to come and speak with us today. Please welcome Mr. Marty Mulford.
Thank you. Is everybody here? Everybody here? Good. So I hate all that stuff. I really do. It's just, I don't like to hear, I mean, I already know, I guess, what I've done. So, but like he said, thank you very much for having me. This conference is awesome. I actually got a chance was anybody in this room on the November trip that you guys took up to Nashville? A couple people. So I got an opportunity. I was sitting at my desk one day. We have a few Florida State graduates that work with us at the Predators and Florida guys. I went to FSU. Did I do something? Okay. Thought I did something. So when that trip got planned, they reached out to Mickey, and Mickey came to my desk and said, "Hey, I've got, what are you doing in the next couple hours?" And I said, "Whatever, I don't know, normal stuff." And he's like, "Well, I got 40 or 45 FSU students coming. I thought you might want to meet them." So for sure. So I go out. We were playing Pittsburgh the next day, which was our biggest game of that part of the year. We had played them in the Stanley Cup Final the year before, so our fans were still extremely angry about how that series ended. So it was one of the biggest games that we had so far. But I did take out the time, got to meet Dr. Pappas, and it was awesome. I mean, meeting everybody and getting a chance to talk to them, show everybody around the arena, and learn a little bit more about this conference. But I actually has anybody heard of Albany, Georgia? I mean, it's really not that far away. Okay, wow, that's awesome. So that's where I grew up. I actually grew up an FSU fan. My whole family's Georgia fans, except for my one aunt and my grandmother, who actually went here. She's 93. She went here. It was an all-girls school. Did anybody even know that this used to be an all-girls school? Okay, so my grandmother went there. I thought she was kidding, but she said, "Honey, it was 70-something years ago, and it was an all-girls school. I promise you. I remember that." So that was pretty cool. So my cousin went here. My brother actually ended up going here. My grandmother went here. So anyway, I was probably 12 or 13 years old, living in Albany. I think I'd been to 2 or 3 Atlanta Braves games my whole life. Just never, love sports, but just 2-3 hours from Atlanta. So my aunt, for my birthday in February, offered me a ticket. She said, "Hey, I want to give you a ticket to the FSU Florida game." And I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. The only bad part is my birthday's in February. So I had to wait like 6 or 7 or 8. Well, that game's always right up against Thanksgiving, right? So I had to wait till all the way that time. So I get to the stadium. It's whatever. It's 80,000 people there. Deion Sanders was on the team. I'm 44, so I'm much older than you guys. Deion Sanders was there. My aunt looks at me and she goes, "What do you think?" And I was like, "This is the most awesome thing I have ever seen. Like, this is incredible." She says, "You see that sign down there?" I said, "Yes." She goes, "They're going to run through it." I said, "Okay, I got that. I've been to enough stuff to know that." So anyway, it was just the most awesome thing I'd ever been to. And I said, "You know what? This is amazing." Like, I already love sports. Now I really love sports. And FSU won the game like 55-20, which made it even better. I know I have a friend in the back, Brett, who's a Gator fan. Where's Brett? Yeah, sorry about that one. But anyway, it was great. So ever since then, I was an FSU fan. And then when I turned 17 years old, my parents had told me, they said, all right, when you turn 17, you've been driving for a year, when you turn 17, you can start driving down there. So then my cousin's extra FSU season ticket became my season ticket. So I went to every game. But anyway, it's just been awesome. Living up in Nashville now, it's a little tougher, obviously, to get down for games. It's a long, very, very long drive. But I did end up bringing my 11-year-old little boy Noah to the Miami game last year. Didn't end up the way we hoped for, but he got the full experience. So, but anyway, I wanted to tell you that. I wanted to tell you a little bit. I know we touched a little bit on where I'm from. I went to FAU, graduated from FAU down in Boca Raton with a communications degree. Wanted to work in sports. I would have probably gone to FSU, but I had an opportunity to go down there and work. Got a job before I actually got into school down there, working in a newspaper. I thought I wanted to be a beat writer. Is anyone here from Minnesota? Nobody. Okay. Does anybody follow hockey pretty closely? And you read other markets' writers. So has anybody heard of a guy named Michael Russo? Covers the Minnesota Wild for the Athletic now. So anyway, he's one of my very best friends. So he ended up getting me a job, helping me get a job with the Sun Sentinel down in Fort Lauderdale. So I was able to work while I was in school. And the reason I went down there is because there was a lot of pro teams down there, and I wanted to be closer to those pro teams so that I could work and interact with those teams while I was down there. Mike was a huge resource for me. Mike and I actually met at a summer camp, a Jewish summer camp in North Georgia. So you really never know where you're going to meet someone that's going to help you down the road. I know Chris was just talking about that, and some other people have been talking about that. But so Mike, that I met when I was like 12 at a Jewish summer camp in North Georgia, in the middle of Cleveland, Georgia, which is, talk about seriously the middle of nowhere. I don't know why they picked that location to build that camp, but that's where the camp is. So I met Mike. Mike ended up hooking me up at the Sun Sentinel, so I ended up working the whole time I was in college at FAU, covering high school sports, covering college sports. I actually ended up covering my own school, FAU, which was fun too. So ended up graduating from there, from FAU, and I sent 150 resumes out. I said, I don't know what I want to do, but it's definitely nothing other than working in sports. That is the only thing I want to do. That's it. My parents own a shoe business in Albany, Georgia. Love shoes. Everybody needs shoes. It's almost recession-proof. I don't want to sell shoes for a living. I just don't. So I want to work in a sports venue. I want to do it. Thing is, I had no idea who to talk to. I had no idea who did anything like that. You know, who do you talk to about that? When I was in high school, I had no idea. So that's ended up going to FAU. Sent out 150 resumes to every minor league baseball team in the country on actual paper. I printed it off myself. I had to buy all the toner cartridge, the toner myself, the paper myself, all the stamps myself. It was awesome. I sent all these things out. I got a call from the Carolina Mudcats baseball team, and just anybody from that area, just outside Raleigh, North Carolina. So I ended up getting, it's the C with the catfish coming through it. You've probably seen the logo. It's one of the most popular logos in minor league sports still today, even with all these other crazy teams coming out. By the way, did you guys see this new team, the North Alabama Trash Pandas? That's crazy. So that just came out the other day. That was on ESPN too. So, but anyway, ended up going to Carolina. I just moved on a whim. I mean, I got this job. They called me. They said, we want to offer you this position. And I said, well, do you want to meet me? And they said, you seem fine. And I said, okay, I'll see you guys in a couple weeks. So I got in my car, drove up to North Carolina. Walked into the office the first day. They have a huge catfish tank right when you walk in the door with 2 catfish on it, which both died while I worked there. I don't know what happened, but they both died while I worked there. And I walked in there and I just started. It was great. I mean, I was like, boy, this is the life. I was making $12,000, $1,000 per month. I didn't even have enough money for rent. I actually lived, you know how like the billet families, like youth hockey? I was one of those. I had to go live with this family, wife and 2 kids. It was the weirdest thing I've ever done. But it was fun. I didn't get to know them. I just felt bad. You know, one funny story, I never knew, I'm a pretty picky eater, and that's not a good scenario, moving in with a family that you don't know. So I had to, so on my way home from the stadium to their house, there was a Hardee's. So I would stop, there was not much in this area of where it was, so I would stop by the Hardee's on my way home and get 3 double cheeseburgers and eat them all in the car. That's a lot to eat, right, in the car on like a 5-minute car ride, but I wanted to make sure that I was good for the night because I couldn't, this is at like 6 o'clock. So I ate 3 double cheeseburgers and a large fry, and then I would get to their house, and then if it was something that I really liked, I'd eat again. Then I was really full, and if it was something I really didn't like, I'd eat like half, you know, so I didn't want to embarrass them or make them feel uncomfortable with me, but ended up doing that job for about 5 months, and I went to the baseball winter meetings. You know, every year in December, minor league baseball puts on their biggest job fair that they have. If you guys are interested in that, I mean, it's a really, really fun thing. There's probably 100 teams that are looking for people to do that. So I went there and I actually got a few job offers there. One of them was of the minor league hockey team. So I'm pretty certain that I'm the only person that's ever gone to the baseball winter meetings and gotten a job with a minor league hockey team. I don't think that really happens too often, but I got lucky. The guy that was running this minor league hockey team had worked for the Braves for 10 years, and he knew there was a lot of people that were looking for jobs. So I ended up moving down to Pensacola and worked for this minor league hockey team in sales. This was my kind of first job in sales. Had no clue what to do. Had to basically teach myself. There was 2 other people in there. They had both been there like 5 or 6 years, so they weren't making a lot of phone calls. Mostly everything was just coming into them, and they were doing that. But I started making outbound phone calls. And it took me a while, probably a couple weeks before I made a first sale. I remember it was a group of 30 tickets to this one guy with a company. I talked to him one day, he said, well, hey, call me back later and we'll get this thing wrapped up. So I called him back like 2 hours later. And he's like, no, I meant like a couple days later. You know, so I said, okay, I got you. Just a little antsy, you know, first sale, trying to get it done. So I ended up doing that for a couple years. Along the way, we actually picked up an Arena Football 2 team, which that was when the Arena Football League was really doing well. They created a 2nd-tier league, which was more regional to the city that it was. So like you could only pull players from like 100 miles away. You could only do all these different things. So that was a really good experience too, kind of launching a new league in a new city. Pensacola, obviously all of Florida is huge football. So this was a successful thing. I mean, we were averaging 4,000 to 5,000. I will say this though, as we went through the building our team, our coach was a guy named Kevin Porter, played in the NFL for a few years. He played college football at Auburn. He was an All-Pro a couple times. So anyway, this guy was going to be on the edge of the 100-mile rule, right? So like we went to these, I had to go out to these walk-on clinics. You know, you do a lot of these things to generate money. You go out and you do these, the ability for people to walk on the team, basically, tryouts. So we went to this one in Theodore, Alabama, I remember, and I was in charge of height and weight for the players. I mean, it's a pretty simple task, right? You just stand there, you put the thing up, you read the gauge. Every single guy argued with me about it. Man, I'm really 6'4". It says on here 6 feet. I'm 6'4". I'm like, you're clearly not 6'4". You know what I mean? I'm getting into arguments with these guys, but that was at 6 o'clock in the morning, 6:30 in the morning. So riding over there with the coaches and getting that stuff done was cool. So I was down with those 2 teams for 2 years. Then I ended up moving on to the Florida Panthers, which was my first job kind of in the big leagues, I guess. I told my parents all along all I wanted to do was work for a team whose highlights were on ESPN. That was it. That was my goal. So I had gotten there. So I had already gotten there. I was with the Florida Panthers. And that was a huge transition, going from Pensacola to the Panthers. I mean, the Panthers was way more departmentalized. All I had to focus on was ticket sales. I didn't have to worry about are the dashboards up. I didn't have to worry about putting towels out. I didn't have to worry about cleaning the floors or doing whatever else I had to do in Pensacola. I really got to just focus on ticket sales. But it's a grind. I mean, you're making a ton of phone calls. You're doing a lot of that kind of stuff. So had that great experience. We had 2 horrific teams. I mean, we were terrible. I'm sure you guys watch hockey. We had back-to-back 60-point seasons. Those are awful. In comparison, the Predators last season had 117 points. So we were the #1 team in the league. We were by far the worst team in the league the 2 years I was there. Not fun. So a guy that I worked with in Pensacola, that I'd worked with for 2 seasons, actually got a vice president of sales position with the Marlins. So when he got down to Fort Lauderdale, Miami area, he called me and he said, hey, I know you're over at the Panthers. I know you've been there for 2 years. I've got to hire a group sales manager. I'd love to know, are you interested? I said, absolutely. So I went over and interviewed. He told me I was one of like 8 people they were interviewing. I'm pretty sure I was the only person he interviewed because he liked to do things pretty quickly and he already knew me, so he figures he's fine. I'll just bring him over here. So I ended up going to work for the Marlins in 2002. In October, it was right at the end of it was funny, I worked the whole offseason at the Panthers, and then at the end of the offseason, I got the job with the Marlins, which was going into their offseason. So I actually had a full year of no games when I moved over to the Marlins. So I started at the very, very, very end of the 02 season and worked that, and I was finally in baseball, which is what, or Major League Baseball, which is what I wanted to do. I thought, is there a better job than getting to wake up every morning and go watch a Major League Baseball every single day for the next 6 months? There's not, at least in my world, there was not. Maybe you guys were like, dude, no way am I doing that. But, so I did that. I started there in 02, group sales manager. I was the group sales manager and I had no reps. So I was the group sales department, actually, is what I really was. And Brett was there during that time, he knows. So we go into the 03 season with some expectations, right? People are like, the Marlins could actually be decent this year. Up to that point, the Marlins had only made the playoffs one time in their history, in 1997, and they won the World Series that year. I hope there's no Cleveland Indian fans in here to bring back those bad memories. But they had only made the playoffs one time in their whole year. So what do we do in 2003? We win the World Series. Again, I'm still a group sales department of one. Not ideal when your team wins the World Series. So we go through that whole season. We get into the playoffs. We beat Barry Bonds and the Giants. Everybody remember the Steve Bartman situation in Chicago? That happened while we were there. I was actually at that game. I've never been more nervous being a fan of the opposing team than I was that single night in Chicago. I was like, someone can kill us. And my Jose Ramos was with me. This guy's huge, like 350, big dude, big Marlins jersey. You can't miss that. It was like a billboard. And I'm like, dude, I got a feeling we're walking the rest of the night. There's no cabs picking us up. So we ended up winning that game. We won the next game, and then we obviously went on and beat the Yankees to win the World Series. So I ended up being there for 6 seasons. But a person that I had worked with at the Panthers, we were both reps together, sat right beside each other in cubes. 6 months after I went to the Marlins, he went to the Predators in Nashville. He and I kept in touch, talked, maybe once every couple months. We emailed each other back and forth if something would happen with one of our teams. Our wives were friends from when they were in Florida. So our director of season ticket sales got promoted to VP of ticket sales. It opened this director spot. So Chris calls me and says, I want you to come interview for this job. I've already given them your name. You need to leave down there. You need to get out of there. You're going to love Nashville. Just come up and check it out. And I'm like, I don't know, man, Nashville, it seems so far out there. What's there to do there? I had never been there before. Now, if any of you guys have been to Nashville, you're like, this guy's crazy. Nashville's awesome. So I ended up packing up the family. We flew up there for the interview, and I got that job. And the point is, and then I've been there now for 10 and a half years. I'm going into my 11th season. I think I've had 5 different jobs since I've been there. And it's an amazing. Has anybody been to a Predators game before? One person. What'd you think? Okay, there you go. That's we don't need. If there was anything else after that, we don't want to hear it. So no, they really are amazing. The game, we have gone from this team almost leaving Nashville right before I started. The team was potentially going to move to Canada. There was the owner of BlackBerry was going to buy the team and move them to Hamilton, Ontario. The fans kind of fought back. Bought season tickets, went crazy. So when I ended up starting at the Predators, we were going into our renewal season. And I've got people dropping 6 seats, 8 seats, 10 seats, 12 seats, and I'm thinking, I'm going to lose my job. I've been here a month, not even a month. But what had happened is all these people had bought all these extra tickets to keep the team there and basically get the season ticket number up. So we had to end up starting to build that back up, which we've been able to do. We recently just capped our season ticket base. We've sold out 109 games in a row. We were the #1 team in the league last year. We made the Stanley Cup final 2 years ago. 4th busiest building in the U.S. We were rated the #1 pro sports team in professional sports. We've got every accolade you could have except for a Stanley Cup. That's what we need to try to get this year. So what I do is I actually oversee all of our service teams. So anything that's sold at the Nashville Predators falls to someone on my team to manage, make sure that they get what they bought. It gets fulfilled. We take care of them, right? We encourage them to do more. We want to upsell those people and just basically just be there when it's renewal time. So we have 22 people. We manage probably $80 million worth of stuff. If you have sponsorships, premium suites, and then all the season, it's everything from about a $400 ticket package to a $2.5 million sponsorship. So we've got everything within our world. But so that's kind of where I'm at right now. There was a few different things I wanted to talk about, and Chris actually touched on a lot of these things too. I went to the Atlanta Falcons career fair. Anybody been to that before? They do a really, really good career fair. Probably 5 years ago. It was actually during the lockout, the last NHL lockout. And I was sitting there and I talked to probably 70 or 80 people in a setting exactly like this. And I said, who wants to do ticket sales? Not one person raised their hand. So that frustrated me because my title was Director of Ticket Sales, and these people had chosen to come sit with me. They could have sat with 3 or 4 other people. So I didn't understand that. So I ended up talking through it, talked to people individually. I was driving back to Nashville, 4-hour drive. And I said, I've got to come up with some way to help these people. I have a real passion for helping people. I love helping people get into the business. And then once they get into the business, if they're successful, I feel even better about it, right? It opens up more opportunities for other people, all these good things. So I went and sat with a professor friend of mine named Colby Jubenville, who's a professor of Masters of Sport Administration at Middle Tennessee State University. We created this book. And basically the book outlines different chapters of what you need to do while you're in college to put yourself in position at graduation day to get a job, or to at least get yourself in front of an opportunity to get a job. And I'll touch on 3 of the different parts of it because it's definitely applicable to people like you guys. One is, you've got to just make a decision. You have got to make a decision what you want to do. And again, this is going to be repetitive because Chris touched on a lot of this same stuff I'm going to touch on. But you've got to simply make a decision. Do you want to work in sports or do you not? And I think if you say you want to work in sports, then you need to be willing to move wherever you need to move. You need to be willing to take whatever you need to take. You need to be willing to do those things. If you're not sure if you want to do that, then sports probably isn't for you. It's just not. It really isn't. You've got, when I went to that baseball winter meetings, and I didn't mention the baseball winter meetings that year I went to them were actually in Nashville in 1998. You guys are like, man, I wasn't even born until 2000. So who wasn't born in 1998? That's funny. That's like, that's awesome. Not really, but awesome. But no, it's like my staff. Half my staff was born, I think, or wasn't even born when I started working in sports. But so I went there wide open. I mean, I just said, I will move anywhere. I'm interviewing with teams in Las Vegas. I'm interviewing with teams in San Diego. I'm interviewing with teams in the northeast part of the U.S. I'm interviewing with teams in the Midwest. Wherever, I didn't care. The coolest part was I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, man, in 3 weeks, I could live anywhere in the U.S. I mean, this is pretty cool. Some people don't like that. They like to be a little more planned and things and that. I'm a little more freer. I don't mind not knowing what the heck I'm doing tomorrow. I don't even know what I'm going to eat lunch until 5 minutes before I go to lunch. So I'm one of those kind of people. But, making that decision is what you got to do. And you guys have obviously made a big decision in investing in yourself and even coming to this program. And I know this program was recently rated #1 in all of the sport management programs in the country. I mean, do you tell people about that? I mean, you're pretty fired up about that. So I mentioned to a professor at Jacksonville University in Alabama that I was coming to this thing, and he's like, man, they've got an awesome program. So, I mean, people know, right? That will carry some weight on your resume when you apply to things, just because people that are familiar with sport management programs and who's got good ones and whose students come out prepared, like UCF has a great program. I'm sure you guys know that. Samford has a great program in Birmingham, but investing in yourself here is the first step in obviously doing that. But truly making that decision and being willing, he went to New Mexico State where apparently gun laws don't matter. We got the guns. He lived 5 minutes from Mexico. That may be what you want to do, may not be what you want to do. He was willing to go and do whatever he had to do. I was willing to go to Pensacola. I was willing to take a job making $1,000 a month in North Carolina. My parents had to help me. I had no option. I couldn't live on $1,000 a month. They still take taxes out of that. Like, what are you guys taking this for? I have no money to start. I think $362 every 2 weeks. I remember it like it was yesterday. When I got the job in Pensacola, my base went up to 16. What am I going to do with this extra $4,000 I got? I went to Biloxi and gambled. That's what I did. If you really want to know the truth, that's actually what I did. And every time I'd leave and come back with no money, I was only one card away from actually winning $1,000, but it wasn't the right card, so then I lost $300. So it was, but making that decision is, and it's a decision with yourself. It's not just saying, hey, you know what, yeah, I'm willing to move there. Yeah, I'm willing to do that. You've really got to be willing to do that. I know you guys hear this stuff all the time, and it is the truth. It really, really is. And hopefully you'll make that decision and you'll go do that. And I tell people the worst thing that's going to happen is you're going to get somewhere and you don't like it, and you complete the year and you go somewhere else. That is the worst thing that's going to happen. Or like Chris, you might meet your wife or husband. Could. Maybe you guys are pretty young, so maybe not. But you could do that. The second thing is don't be super picky. I probably talk to students like you guys, or maybe a little bit earlier than you guys in their college, 3 days a week on my way to work. And I talk about this every time. Don't be picky, don't be picky, don't be picky. And what I mean by don't be picky is, don't just take the first job that gets offered to you, but look at your options and see which one's the best fit for you. It may not be in the city you want to live in. It may not be in the place that you ultimately want to be. That's okay. You're not going to be there forever. Like Chris said, he's in New Mexico. He didn't want to be in New Mexico, but he went there because that's where the job was. That was probably where the best opportunity was for him. There's a person, I don't know if he's in the room, I won't say his name, but he's a former FSU student. Talked to him on the phone about 1.5 years ago. Met him through a mutual friend. And I talked to him, and he was telling me about all the things that he had done at FSU while he was here. And it was all awesome stuff, super great stuff. And I said, what do you think about ticket sales? And he's like, well, I feel like I have more to offer to a team than ticket sales. And I said, hold on a minute. You've been doing this for how many tickets have you ever sold? None. Okay, you don't have more to offer than what a ticket sales. And I think sometimes people, they just don't, and now what's funny is 1.5 years later, he's with a Big 4 team, selling tickets, and he's doing very well. And I think sometimes you just need to open up a little bit and say, hey, you know what, I know I want to do marketing, I know I want to do hockey ops or baseball ops or basketball ops. I know I want to deal with the players, I want to deal with recruiting, I want to deal with this, but I've got to get started at some point. I've got to get a job, I've got to start meeting people, I've got to start seeing what other opportunities are out there. Because I've had a lot of people that have worked for me at the Predators. I had this one person, her name's Kendall. She thought she wanted to do media. She was one of my group sales people. Very, very good at group sales, super good. She wanted to do media relations, she thought. So she was going to leave the Predators and go take an internship with the Indiana Pacers in their media department. And I said, before you do that, why don't you just go shadow our media relations people at the Preds 3 times. And then if you like it, you'll go take the internship. I still don't know why you take a free internship over a paid full-time job you have here, but that's okay. That's okay. I mean, you're at an NHL team, so you're already kind of there. So she ended up doing exactly what I told her. She shadowed Kevin in our media relations department, comes back to me after the 3rd day and says, you know what, definitely not what I want to do. I'm like, holy crap, what if you had taken that internship? You'd be out of a job and you'd be doing this internship. You'd be in the middle of Indiana instead of in awesome Nashville. And now, what's going on with this? So it ended up that her sweet spot was service. She didn't want to have to call people. She didn't want to be outbound. She didn't want to do that. She wanted to take care of people. So we did not have a position open for her. A position opened up with the Minnesota Wild. I made a call up there for her to at least get her in front of the right person. She got the job. She just celebrated her 4th anniversary there. She's one of their top service people. So, but she wouldn't have known that had she not started somewhere. She started in something she was super uncomfortable with. She was really good at it, but she didn't like it. And ultimately, that didn't matter. I mean, it didn't matter how good she was at it if she didn't want to do it. But we got her into the right spot. But again, she wouldn't have gotten that opportunity. So not being picky is a huge part of it too. You want to work for the best person for you. I had another opportunity at a guy with the Predators that ended up got a job offer from the Philadelphia Flyers and the Houston Dynamo. 2 completely different teams. He was actually from Indiana, so neither of these 2 teams were in his home market or anything. He wanted to go take the Flyers job because it was the Flyers. I don't blame him. Sexy team, right? They're rough. It's a great city. All the sports teams, lots of history there. Really cold. Really cold. Anybody from Philly? Oh my God, it's so cold there. I couldn't do it. So he ended up, so I told him, I said, why do you want to take this job? He's like, I get to work for the Flyers, I get to do this, I be at all the games, I get to do that. I said, none of that matters, man. You want to go work for the best person for you. Well, it just so happened that a very good friend of mine, Marcus Madlock, was the director of ticket sales at the Houston Dynamo. I love Marcus. He's one of my best friends, and he is a coach. He is a ticket sales coach. That's what he does. And I knew that he would take the time with David and walk him through everything and really coach him up. If David didn't hit his goal after the 3rd month, Marcus wasn't going to fire him. Who knows what the Flyers would have done? They might have just moved him out. Now he's back on the street again looking for a job. So I encouraged him to go to Houston. He thought about it. He did end up choosing to go to Houston, which I was really, really happy about. And he was their #1 guy within a year, you know? Now, he is actually out of sports now, but it was his own choice. He wanted to move back home and get out of sports. So, but it wasn't because of anything that he had done. So that was a situation where he really went against what he actually wanted to do because it was the best thing for him. And it's hard. You know, it's easier for me to look at you guys and say, man, you should have taken this job. It was better. But I know what it's like to be you two, and I probably would have wanted to take the Philly job too. Or I would have wanted to go to Vegas, or I would have wanted to go do this. I mean, there's no doubt. But you really want to work. All you guys have had teachers that you've worked with that were so much better than other teachers for you. You know, you learned more with them. You enjoyed spending time with them. They gave you time, and that's what you want. So it might not even be a full-time job. You might choose a non-full-time job over a full-time job because of that. Worst thing that's going to happen is the end of the year you move. I know moving's terrible. I hate moving. But at the beginning of your career, you're going to do that a little bit, unless you can get lucky. My senior VP of ticket sales at the Predators has worked his entire career at the Nashville Predators, selling tickets at the mall, at a kiosk, of which he sold 0. I don't even know how he got a full-time job after that. He even admits that. No clue how I got a full-time job, but he did. And now he's our senior vice president of tickets. He's on our executive team. He's one of our top 5 employees of the organization. Started selling tickets at the mall. That is rare, though. I mean, would you say, I mean, it is really, really rare for someone to work their entire career with one team. It's just tough, because sometimes that position's not open when you're ready, or, you know, or vice versa. The position's open, you're not ready, they give it to somebody else, and now 2 years later you are ready. And now what are you going to do? You know, I'm kind of in a weird spot at the Predators right now. My problem is I love Nashville so much, I don't want to move anywhere else, because I love the city, and I love the team, but I definitely love the city. Plus, I made a choice I made a decision myself that I wanted my kids to grow up in one place. I don't want them to have 9 different hometowns. I grew up in Albany, Georgia. I go there a couple times a year. I don't want to live there anymore, but I do love that. I have a hometown. I have buddies that I went to high school with. I did that. I didn't want my kids to not have that. So I kind of thought when I first went to Nashville, I'd be there 3 or 4 years, then we'd move away, and then I would be in that job for 10 or 12 years. Well, that's not what happened. So now my kids are 13 and 11. No chance I'm taking them out of their middle school and high school. My daughter's about to go into high school. My little boy just moved into 6th grade. No way I'm moving. There's no way I'm moving them. So all their friends having to start off, they'd probably be fine, but I don't want to do that to them. You know, so that's important to me. But and then the third thing is just once you get whatever opportunity it is, just be a little bit patient. It's not going to happen overnight. You really do need to take some time, learn the full position. I mean, I can tell you from a ticket sales standpoint, when I went from Pensacola to the Panthers, it was a totally different world. Selling tickets for Pensacola, I was supporting the city. You know, this is a city of 400,000 or 500,000 people. This is the local team. There was no other. I had 0 competition. It was the Pensacola Ice Pilots. That was it. We were the only team in town. Not even a college football team there. A lot of FSU fans there, but that's still 3 hours away. A lot of Alabama, Auburn fans, but that's still a distance away. We were the only team. So I moved to Florida Panthers. That was a completely different job. Even though it was the same actual job, I was doing the same thing, it was a different job. I had the Dolphins, the Marlins, University of Miami. The Panthers were obviously here. The Miami Heat were there. I mean, there was a lot of, the beach is there. Clubs, a lot of clubs down there. Not that I ever went to any of those, but there are clubs there if you've never been. South Beach is down there. There's also just a massive mall called Sawgrass Mills that's down there that has like 87 million people a year that go there or something. So we were competing with all that stuff. Plus, Miami, Fort Lauderdale, Miami is always, it's warm, right? It's a warm place. People are always able to get outside and go do stuff. So I had that, and that was tough. I mean, you're calling people every day, and they're basically telling you what you think they'd be telling you. Not nice things, you know? Hanging up on you, doing that. So it was a grind, a lot harder than Pensacola was. Tickets were also a lot more, too. I think a season ticket in Pensacola was $300, and a season ticket in Florida was $3,000. So That was a lot different too. So ended up, it was like a totally different job. I had to learn my job over on a completely new level of what I was doing. So doing that for 2 years, I felt like I got the grasp of it. I understood it. I knew what I needed to do. And that's why taking that job as the group sales manager 2 years later was the right fit. But when I got into that group sales manager role, it sounds a lot bigger than it was. Like I said, I was a one-man department. I had to learn how to do that because that was a little bit different. Okay, now I've got to learn how to package up groups. Now I've got to learn how to do some of that crazy stuff that he was talking about doing, putting together, like literally creating group nights out of thin air and getting people to participate in them. We did, this big University of Miami night that he spoke about. I mean, that was a simple, we brought this person from University of Miami out for batting practice. We talked to him. He said, hey, this sounds great. Let's have a meeting. We put it together. We went out in the first year. We sold 4,000 tickets, 4,400 to be exact. Ticket, hot dog, and drink. That was it. Year 2, we did 12,000. Year 3, we did 18. And then by year 4, we did about 20,000 tickets. It was the hardest group night I've ever done, but it sold 20,000 tickets. So it was awesome. But being able to be creative like that and then learning along the way, what you do. So you have to take time. You're never going to become the number 1 sales guy in 3 months. You might hit a big sale early, and you're like, I'm sitting at the top of the board, but you got to be consistent. Like, I would much rather hire someone, if somebody sold $1 million and they sold 2 sales that were $1 million, or somebody else sold 1,000 sales that equaled $1 million, I'm going to take the guy with 1,000, because he sold more stuff. So you've got to learn. You got to give yourself time to really learn how to do it. I know everybody wants to move up quickly. So do I. I'd love to be the president right now. I wouldn't be there long because I have no idea what I'm doing, but I would get fired. But I would love to move up and be the president now. Have I mastered the job I'm in now? Absolutely not. No, because I'm in a new role. I've been in a new role for about 1.5 years, trying to manage all these service teams. Extremely difficult. It's 3 different departments, all working on different things, and everybody needs answers at the same time. Sometimes I leave work and I'm like, I probably should be fired. But no, I'm in my car when I say that. No one's with me. And then other days I'm like, you know what? Today was a great day. But I'll tell you what, working in sports, every day is a good day, because you could be doing something different that you hate. I've got friends of mine that make so much more money than I do, but they hate it. And I'm like, is it worth making 3 times what I make? Which it might be. I don't know, man. That's a lot of money. But is it worth doing that, but going to work every day and just being miserable because they hate it? I don't think so. I really don't. I mean, I don't want to test it and see. So I'm probably not going to ever leave sports. I've been doing it now for 20 years. Every day when I walk in from the garage to my office, I walk right on the 100 level concourse. Every day I walk in and I just look at the ice, right? I just look at it and I'm like, pretty sweet gig I've got, and I've been doing it for 20 years. I just pop in there and look. Like, man, big game tonight. Like, if we have a game that night, or if we have a show that night and they're already getting it set up for that night's show. Like I said, we were the 4th busiest building in the U.S. last year, behind Madison Square Garden, Staples Center in Chicago. The next is Nashville. Then it's like Atlanta, Dallas. Like, somehow we got in there. Like, we snuck in there. And we've consistently been in the top 5 for the last couple of years. We got Kevin Hart tomorrow night. We got 2 Bruno Mars shows coming up. We got Maroon 5 on Sunday. We got a Prince game tonight. I mean, it's crazy. We are busy. But that's what I get to do every day. I tell my wife, I felt so bad. I skipped over this. We had both of my children. I say we. My wife totally had them. I was just there. But both of them were born opening week of the 05 baseball season and the 07 baseball season. Talk about bad timing when you work for a baseball team. First time I was like, man, what crazy luck. Like, this is terrible. I'm like, see you in a week, because we got 7 straight baseball games. The second one, I was like, we're really idiots this time. Like, we should have at least somewhat tried to plan this better. So we have 2 kids, and that was tough. I mean, having those 2 kids in the beginning of the baseball season, but it was still. My wife would always say, I would say, hey, we've got this event tomorrow night, and I really need. She's like, I know you got to go to work. I think if I laid sidewalks or parking lots, or it was a roofer, she'd feel better about me leaving and going to do this stuff for work. But since she knows I'm literally going to a sporting event, that is not work to her. She's like, he's not going to work, he's just going to talk to people. And I have to remember to tell her that, you know, this is when our clients are actually with us. Like, this is when we can actually talk to them. This is when we see them and we can show them around and we can do stuff. So I very rarely, I probably watch maybe a third of a game on a game night. I always know the score. It's kind of hard not to when you got your cell phone blowing up every time somebody scores a goal. Or I always know how many goals we have. I never know how many goals the other team has, because the big horn goes off when we score. When there's no horn, that's not good, right? So you just walk out there and you look and you're like, we had a game at the end of the year. I was just telling somebody this story yesterday. We had a game the other day, or at the end of the year, we played Carolina, which for whatever reason we cannot beat them. I don't get it, but we can't beat those guys. And there was a guy walking up the escalator, and he had a burger and a salad and a drink. He was holding it all. So what do you think happened when he got to the top of the escalator and you have to step off? Like $25 worth of food goes right on that little silver part. It's like right there at the very top of the escalator. So everybody's jumping over it and trying to hop over it. So I'm like, I'm dressed just like this. I'm like, I got to clean this stuff up. So I go and get like 800 napkins, and I'm trying to stand there, and I'm cleaning this thing up. And when I end up, this is right when the game started. I mean, the game had just started. So I walk out, so I get done cleaning it up, and I walk out to see what's going on in the game. We're down 4-0. 8 minutes into the game. I'm like, well, time to go back to the office. I've seen this game happen a few times, but that's the worst thing that happened to me that day. We lost a hockey game. You know, I got to still go to work the next day. My office is decked out in sports stuff, Marlins autograph baseballs, Predators autograph stuff, Pecorine, our Vezina Trophy winning goalie. You know, his stuff all over the place. I got a Josh Beckett World Series thing with him, and it's signed, and all that stuff's hanging all over my place. T-shirts, jerseys. Did I take you to the office when you came?
No, I was unfortunate.
It's probably too dirty. I don't often clean that place. It is bad. So there's just stuff everywhere, because my office kind of becomes a locker room for all of the old T-shirts that we don't give away. But either way, so well, hopefully that was helpful. I did. I'd love to chat with each of you guys individually. I have. Maybe if you'll send out my information. If you guys want to set up a one-on-one phone call, I'm happy to do that. Like I said, I do that a lot of times on my way into work and my way home from work. Happy to do that with any of you guys. I'm super passionate about helping people. I really do want to help get you in the right spot. Like I said, you're in a great program, so obviously Dr. Paps is going to really help you as well, which is huge. I mean, he's got a huge network, and just getting you the interview is the toughest part. I do have one more thing. We just hired a sponsorship service position. Sponsorship service, one role I posted on Teamwork Online for 2.5 weeks. How many resumes do you think I got? I know you guys hear this number all the time, but I want to give you a true number of what happened just recently at the present. Just give me a guess. More than that. Not quite that many. I would have died if I got that many. 747 resumes for one job that pays $40,000, and that's with 4 years experience in sponsorship service. We did end up hiring someone, thankfully. Oh my God, it was like the longest process ever. I mean, I didn't talk to all 747 people. I talked to about 15. And we actually hired a person from out of sports that did not work in sports. She kind of brought a unique angle. She worked in the music festival industry, doing music, selling sponsorships and servicing sponsorships for music festivals. So I thought that was pretty unique. I thought she could bring some really cool ideas to the Preds. And so we hired her. So she starts on October 1st. I'm so excited for her to finally start. It'll be great. So I don't know what questions you guys have. I'd love to answer as many as I can. And then I'll actually be at the table out there if you guys have more.
Question back here.
Hi, my name's Chris Camacho. I was just curious, with gambling now becoming legalized, I'm curious how you feel that's going to affect ticket sales and attendance at, say, NHL games.
I don't think I don't think it'll affect it much. At least not for our home games. I mean, I think people love to gamble. People can really gamble now, right? I mean, they just go to those offshore betting sites and they can gamble now. In Tennessee, it hasn't really gotten there yet. Like, we're not there yet. I know our sponsorship guys are excited to start selling sponsorships to those guys because they have a lot of money. But I personally do not believe it'll affect it because I think they can do it now.
Question up here in front.
Hi, my name is Edward. I have a question. From what I've seen from Nashville, it's almost like the organization is running perfectly, from the product on the ice, the fans, the top, like the organizational management, stuff like that. You guys have really just shot right to the top of the NHL. Do you think that's a top-down approach, something from all around, something that someone came in and sparked up something new in the entire organization? What kind of feeds into that continued excellence?
Good question. I can tell you for sure it was that, and it was our CEO, Sean Henry. I mean, I give him all the credit in the world. He doesn't like to get it. Well, he might secretly like to get it, but he doesn't like to get it when I give it to him. But when Sean came in 8 years, we hired a CEO and a president 2 years ago. It's two different people. Jeff Kogan, Sean Henry. Jeff was with the Dallas Stars, Sean was with Tampa. Both have won Stanley Cups, both have been very successful in their own markets. They came in together, and I actually had worked early, I had actually worked with Jeff at the Florida Panthers as well. So that was another situation where Jeff coming to Nashville, I'm like, oh my God, did he like me? Did he not like me? Is he gonna fire me right when he gets here? Well, it turned out he was really excited. It was myself and the other guy, Chris, that got me to come up there. We were the only two guys that Jeff had ever worked with before. But those guys came in with we gotta fill the building situation. You know, nothing is ever going to get better here until we start filling this building up. However we fill the building up is, we got to discuss that. There's a million different ways to get that done. Selling, comping. Okay, if you're going to comp, how are you going to comp? You know, are you going to do data capture? Are you going to do all this stuff? So we started doing a lot of that. We started getting a lot of new people coming to games. And then but I think the most important part was what they did with our staff. Is just saying, look, you guys this is all your team. You are just as responsible for this team as I am, even though I'm the president of the team. You are. You see a napkin on the floor, pick it up. You see something looks dumb, don't walk by and say, can you believe that guy spelled that wrong on the menu board? No, fix it. Or call the guy and say, hey man, this is broken. We created an email address, onegoal@NashvillePredators.com. So whenever we see something in the arena, we take a picture of it, email it to onegoal@NashvillePredators.com, it gets fixed. So everybody's taking ownership of the Predators now. Every staff member. And I think that really made a huge difference when it comes to the fans' experience of the game, because everyone feels like they are an owner of the team, right? And it really has. And Sean really challenges us to challenge our coworkers, because that's not a comfortable thing, right? If you're sitting there and you're like, your marketing guy rolls out this long plan, and you're like, dude, that's terrible. Like, you're not really comfortable saying that to this guy, right? Because he just spent all this time doing it. But Sean wants you to do that. And it's taken some time. It even took some time for me. Like, I don't like to do that in a group setting. I'd rather pull the guy aside and be like, hey man, do you really I was thinking maybe this might look better, or this might look better. It's just not a natural thing for someone to call out a coworker of theirs in a meeting. It's just not a natural thing for somebody to do, but we do have that more now. Not in a negative way. I mean, Sean says if the guy that you're doing it to gets offended, then it's his problem. Don't worry about it. You know, we want to be the best that we can, and if it means making a change, then let's make it. And I think a lot of those things combined has helped us. We were actually on a pretty good trajectory when the team made that run to the finals, and that run to the finals just, everything like Sean said, we all got a lot smarter these last 2 years. Because now we're selling out, we had sold out every game that season leading up to that run to the finals. So we're in a good spot. But that was a good question. I mean, it's very, very important to have that. And it's definitely a top down. I mean, from the ownership group too.
Next question.
So 109 straight sellouts, 90+% renewal rate. I know Nashville has really embraced the Preds and great product, Stanley Cup Finals run, but maybe earlier on, not quite doing as well. I'm just curious, what are some of the challenges that you might have faced selling hockey to people in the South, and how did you work around that?
I think, I wasn't there the first 10 years of the team, so I only know what we've done since I've been there. But a lot of it plays into, a little bit like what your question was, is getting people, we don't waste open seats. So I think in a lot of situations what we did is we would do things like to get people to experience the games. We had individual inventory. We would get out in the community. We'd take our players different places because, somebody from Middle Tennessee, from, Columbia, Tennessee, that's dealing with a guy that just moved to Nashville from Sweden to play. I mean, those two don't connect. They're not in the same world. You know what I mean? So that took some time. But I think as people started to understand what hockey was, People still make fun of us when they'll make some comment about a rule, like a hockey rule. They'll be like, Nashville doesn't even know what icing is, you know? Of course our fans know what that is. The team's been around for 20 years, but I think just over all the years of just getting people to experience a game has been a big help. Just get them to come out and try it. Hey, just come check it out. I can tell you this thing, when I walk around Nashville, I see people wearing Preds stuff, or I see people at our Preds games, and I'm like, I would have never in a million years thought that guy would have spent $1 on a Predators ticket based on the way he looks. You know, you just, really? Think, oh man, I love that Ryan Ellis guy. He's my guy. You know, I'm like, really? I'm like, really? All right. Love Ryan Ellis too. You know, I didn't think you would like Ryan Ellis, but you never know. You know, and I think we just spent a lot of time and resources and effort getting those people out and capture their data along the way so we can follow up on them. That's the biggest part. So you can call them and say, hey, what did you like about it? What didn't you like about it? What did you not understand? Hey, I'd like to get you out to another game. I'm going to come sit with you for 10 minutes and walk you through everything. Well, people love that stuff. And Nashville is I was telling Zach from Georgia Tech at breakfast this morning, people feel like they are a part of the Predators. I think we've done that a little bit through the way we service people and take care of them, but they feel like when we beat Chicago in the playoffs a couple years ago, we swept them. They were like our biggest nemesis. Like, these guys beat us every year. We could beat them in the regular season, but man, you get to the playoffs, they put the hammer down and they just say, you know what, that was fun over here. We're going to take care of business now and go win the cup. And they did that 3 times and beating us along the way all 3 times. So that was pretty